Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast. This week we are talking about pornography and its effects on marriage.
Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast with Trey and Lee. On this podcast, you'll hear real topics about real life. They cover everything from married sex to raising kids to loving your spouse so much that you're willing to forgive them for occasionally being the most annoying person in the world. Trey and Lee have raised 4 boys, been married over 30 years, and somehow still really like each other. And now, live from the metropolis of Childress, Texas, a place so flat you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. Here are your hosts for the Stronger Marriage Podcast, Trey and Lee Morgan.
Hey everyone, so glad y'all joined us today.
Glad to have you with us. It's been 2 weeks since we've been here. We appreciate you giving us some time off, and we're glad to be back.
Yeah, we enjoyed some cool mountain temperatures.
Yeah, we went to Red River, New Mexico last week where we taught some classes for a event called the Red River Family Encampment. And you said cool. Are you sure it wasn't cold?
It was a little cold. We taught class 3 mornings in a row. And I actually wore my heavy coat for all 3 classes. So yeah, it was a little on the cool side, but it was good. We enjoyed a week with our family and our grandbaby, and just had a really great time.
And folks showed up in the rain.
Folks actually showed up in the cold and rain.
Craziness.
For the classes.
Yes.
They did.
Yes, we have our big marriage getaway weekend coming up in Dallas this weekend. And then we have events in Kentucky and in Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Very good.
And we're trying to learn how to say that too.
Murfreesboro. It's a lot of R's right there together.
Yeah. We're learning, but we're excited about coming that way. We're talking today about the effects of porn in marriage. We get lots of questions about pornography, a lot of questions on how to deal with it. My spouse is watching. What do I do? Is it harmful to your marriage? And so we're going to talk about some stuff that you may or may not agree with, but we're going to give you our opinion on some stuff, some things that we think that you need to know and that we're going to share today. And then part 2 next week, we're going to talk about some ways of overcoming this. If this is something you've had issues with in your marriage, what are some steps that you can do to get over this? And we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. There is kind of interesting, I know you know this, Lee, but I find it interesting that porn is one of the top 10 reasons for a sexless marriage. That it just... there's a lot of issues that deal with porn. It causes lots of problems. It rewires the brain, how you look at things. It teaches you falsely certain things about sex. There's not intimacy involved in pornography. One of the big things, and we'll talk about it in a minute, is we hear, and it's not always men, but this just happens to be. We hear wives all the time say, "My husband's watching this, and I just don't compare. My body doesn't compare to the women's bodies that he's watching, and I feel so inadequate for being able to do the things that he's watching. I'm not good enough." And so, there's just so many issues that deal with pornography and how it affects marriage, and we're just going to kind of talk about that as we go.
Yeah. Man, it's sad that it's on the rise, but it is. And I think that it's just so easily accessible anymore with cell phones in hand.
You think about that for a second. And as a teenage boy, this is me back in the 80s, if you wanted to see pornography, you had to either figure out a way to sneak a magazine from a convenience store or something. And now pornography is on a phone or a computer and just so accessible.
Yeah, it's thrown in our kids' face whether they want to see it or not, and so kids are being exposed to it at younger ages and getting addicted to it at younger ages, and it's just, it's sad. In 2013, I guess this was the last statistic we had, 2013, porn sites received 450 million unique monthly visitors. That's more than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined.
Yeah, it's just amazing how many people are watching that, and we'll give some more statistics on that. And there's some myths about pornography we want you to know, some things that aren't true that maybe you've heard out there. And so here's several myths. These are not true, but maybe you've heard these. All men look at porn. That is not true. All men do not look at pornography. Another myth is that men can't help themselves. That's how they're built. That also is a myth.
Women don't look at porn. That's a myth.
Yes.
In fact, that statistic sadly is also on the rise. There are more and more women that are becoming addicted to porn than ever before.
Yeah, and porn for women isn't always your hardcore pornography. Sometimes it's romance novels, and don't take that wrong, but when you're swooped away with the same sort of attraction that a man feels from pornography through a romance novel or something like that you have, if you're desiring, I want to be in this situation with this man the way he's treating this woman, there's some things to consider there. Is this a healthy thing? If you're told, hey, there's an old phrase that says, if your husband tells you he's not looking at porn, he's lying. That is untrue. There are men who do not look at porn. There are women who do not look at porn. You should never ban porn from your marriage. That's also a myth. Women's feelings don't matter. At least he's not cheating on you. Again, terrible philosophy on pornography. Actually, this next little one on the list I thought was kind of interesting.
If you don't sext your man, he will look at pornography.
Well, I think if you want to sext with your man, I think you got all the permission in the world if you're married to him. You can do anything with your phone that you want, but to use any excuse of going, if you don't do this, I'm going to look at porn is not right, and that should never, ever be the case.
You should never feel like you have to do something to keep your husband from.
That's exactly right.
Using porn.
Your husband or your wife, God did not
Yes.
create them without self-control. We are not dogs, and so we have the ability to control ourselves. You should join him. You should join him so he doesn't feel guilty. Porn is harmless. These are all myths. These are all things that are not true. The fact is that porn hurts marriages. That's our feelings. And we're going to give you some reasons of why that is.
Yeah, it's addictive. It's so addictive, and it's hard on your marriage. The porn industry, here's another crazy statistic. The porn industry made $90 billion last year. That's more than the NFL, MLB, NBA, and all NCAA sports combined. I mean, you think about how much money the sports industry generates, and it's not anywhere close to what the porn industry generates.
Yeah. And pornography is one of those things. I've actually had a man today actually made the comment, I don't know this person, it was on social media, but they said if my wife, I would not look at porn if my wife was more sexual. And that's just another dumb excuse. Because, again, you're not a dog, you have self-control. I think we talk about it in a minute, but pursuing porn is very lazy. It's doesn't require any work, and pursuing your spouse does. And there's a lot of people out there that either don't know how to pursue their spouse or just don't want to put the effort in, and so then there's porn.
That's right.
And that's not a good way.
And it's all about self. I don't want to jump ahead because I'm sure that's a point we're going to spend some time on down here in a minute, but it's selfish. Basically,
it is,
because it's all about me and me feeling good, and So
let's talk about some actual issues with porn. We got about 10 of them. We've listed some things we have problems with, some things that are bad for your marriage, and so take off.
It breaks trust in your marriage. Breaks trust. According to numerous studies, prolonged exposure to pornography leads to a diminished trust between intimate couples. And it's not surprising because pornography and secrecy go hand in hand. I mean, people that view pornography, they go to great lengths usually to hide it from their spouse. They're waiting until their spouse is gone, or they're waiting until after they go to bed. They're careful to lock doors, erase internet history, all of those things. It's a secret passion, and
yeah.
So of course it's going to break trust. If you're ever doing anything in secret, then when your spouse finds out about it, trust is going to be broken.
Yeah. There should be no secrets in your marriage, and when there are, you're going to feel betrayed about that. And so that's kind of what the point is here. Being upfront with your spouse, trying to deception is it's a common theme of pornography. And in contrast, transparency is the common theme of strong marriages, where there's nothing hidden, there are no secrets. And usually the person looking at porn doesn't want their partner to know they're looking at porn.
Mm-hmm.
It's secrecy, shame, isolation. And so they sneak around until it just gets worse and worse and worse. And keeping secrets from your spouse is just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. We've known couples that have kept this secret for years and finally either got found out or decided, I need help and I've got to come clean. And man, their spouse is usually just shocked to learn that they've been doing this in secret for years. And, they often wonder, well, what else are they keeping from me? What other big secrets do they have if they've kept this from me for so long?
Right. So let's talk for a second thing about the difference between sex, having sex, and making love. And while those are a couple of things that are, you can they're awfully similar, but intimacy in marriage is all about making love. That's all about pornography. And while you can have times in your marriage where you just have sex, but making love is what is so much more. Sex is about pleasure. Making love is about connection. It's about you connecting with your spouse. Sex is about the body, and making love is about the person, because of the bonding hormone of oxytocin that's released during sexual intimacy. Man, it is a wonderful and powerful way to feel closer to and connect with your spouse.
Yeah, that's true. We talked about in that first one that it's all about secrecy, but there are couples that know full well that their spouse is looking at porn, and it's still harmful. And this is one of the reasons why, is because it leads to the objectification rather than that meaningful interaction with another person. And really the rest of these reasons, can go both ways. It's harmful whether you know it or whether you don't know it. It can destroy self-esteem. That's the next one.
Yeah.
For both people, really.
It really can. It is so, the person in the pornography video, their body may be a whole lot different than yours or from your spouse's. And if your spouse is going, well, I don't look anything like that, and it has a huge effect on them. Mm-hmm. They may be looking, what does my husband or my wife find in this that I can't give them, and so I just don't match up. I just don't fit as well as what they do, and that's a bad thing.
Yeah, well, and it says here another statistic that when men and women were exposed to porn, they were less likely to be pleased with their partner's physical appearance, affection, and sexual performance. So, the spouse has every right to feel like they're not measuring up, because honestly, that's how they're, once that person is exposed to porn, that's kind of what they've raised their expectations. And those expectations are they're not realistic, because those people, goodness, you talk about airbrushing and all those things that they can do to make people look photoshopped and
and not just bodies,
no.
Actually the acts of sex,
mm-hmm.
doing certain things that is probably very scripted, and you think, my spouse doesn't do that, why can't I get my spouse to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just so much comparison in the fact that it would be easy to be more critical of your partner's appearance or maybe their sexual abilities when you're watching some unrealistic thing on television. It would be kind of like trying to learn how to drive a car by watching Fast and Furious.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to drive a car, but I'm going to watch Fast and Furious, and they're going to teach me. You can't do that.
Yeah.
That's unrealistic.
Yeah. And it even says here that, and this is geared towards men, saying men who viewed a lot of porn were likely to say that they became more critical of their wife's appearance and lost interest in sex with their partner as a result. And so twice as many women reported that their porn-watching spouses became more critical, and that this criticism made them less interested in sex. I mean, if somebody's going to be criticized all the time and feel like they don't measure up, of course they're going to be less interested. And doctors have even suspected that the increased porn usage is the cause of the rise in women seeking plastic surgery to change their bodies, which is a sad thing as well.
Yeah, it is. The Bible talks about learning to love your spouse and their body for who they are, whether you've been married 3 months or 30 years. That's Proverbs chapter 5, verse 18, which gives you the idea of don't ever stop being intoxicated with your spouse's body. Mm-hmm. And it's much easier to do that when you're not comparing your spouse to something that you're watching on television.
That's
or
right.
whatever it is, on a phone.
Yeah, that's true.
But porn, a fourth thing, porn causes selfishness.
Yes, that's what I mentioned earlier.
You did. It is so selfish.
This is actually a quote from somebody that used porn, and he said, "Seldom did I think of bringing sexual pleasure to my wife. I thought only about getting and not giving."
Yeah.
And that's kind of how porn rewires your brain.
Yeah. Pornography at its core is about selfishness. Marriage and married sex is about selflessness. It's about pleasing your spouse. It is, what can I do during intimacy time to make my spouse feel good? What will they like? And it's not just about giving. It is not about being selfish. A relationship where one spouse is only interested in taking usually doesn't last very long. It's not going to be good it's not going to be a fulfilling sex life or in the marriage, because one spouse is just going to go, well, this just isn't a lot of fun because it doesn't really include me.
Mm-hmm. It says that people who use porn regularly often have a hard time being gentle during lovemaking. Sex tends to be impersonal, rushed, and forced. There's no foreplay. There's no waiting to arouse someone. It's just taking what you want. Selfishness at its core.
Yeah. Thought this was interesting. Here's a statistic that someone came up with. There's a little fact that most folks don't know. The least popular day for Americans to view porn is on Thanksgiving Day. And maybe that's because that's the day where everybody is thinking about being thankful. And
gratitude and selfishness are exact opposites.
Exactly.
And people are focused on being thankful and grateful on Thanksgiving. So maybe they decide they'll just kind of give that a rest on that day.
Yeah, there you go. Well, another one, a fifth one before we run out of time. Porn demeans women and men as well. I think it could both. But just regular pornography showed that more porn that men are exposed to, the more likely he was to prefer that a woman be submissive or subordinate to a man or to her husband. It changes the way men view women. It's not about intimacy anymore. It is about, you please me.
That's right. A lot of porn portrays women being dominated, abused, and enjoying it. And I would dare say that you could find porn that portrays men that way too. Because, I mean, let's face it, like I said earlier, women are getting more and more involved with porn. And so you can find any kind of porn out there that you're looking for. And if it's, if you're looking for men being dominated or women being dominated, you're going to find it. And so, a lot of this material is written leaning more towards men, this being their problem, but it's an issue that men and women face.
Yeah. Porn impairs your sex life. Now, I'm going to throw some statistics out here that are pretty interesting. Pornography can lead to a decreased sexual performance.
Yes.
Meaning 19% of porn users, men, suffered from premature ejaculation. 25% are disinterested in sex with their partners. You heard me say a while ago that people who are addicted to porn are oftentimes have a sexless marriage. 31% have difficulty reaching orgasm. 34% experience erectile dysfunction. And you just go down these lists, and there's just more and more and more negativity sexually than there is positive things.
That's right. After 60%, or after, I don't know what the number is here, I don't see the number, but after committing to no porn, 60% of those who did said that they felt their sexual functions improved. Yeah. And 67% had an increase in energy levels as well as productivity.
Well, sure, productivity. So, getting something done now.
Right. You're not sitting in front of a computer screen. Oh, goodness. Too many people say that they use porn in order to spice up their sex life. But research shows it actually wrecks your libido. It does just the opposite of what you're intending it to do. Not only is it leading to bad sex, but some studies have shown it's taking away men's ability to have sex at all.
Yeah, and so that's all we want you to understand, and all we want you to see is don't believe the lies about pornography out there. Pornography makes you sexually lazy. Mm-hmm. Pursue your spouse sexually, not pornography.
That's right.
If in porn, everybody is turned on all the time. You don't have to make an effort to arouse. It's automatic. You don't have to bring flowers. You don't have to send text messages. You don't have to work at it. It's right. Just, hey, we're just all turned on at the same time.
Yeah, that's one of those very unrealistic things that is portrayed on the big screen. Because we preach all the time that it's an all day thing. Turning on your partner is an all day thing. It's your attitude. It's the way you talk to each other. It's the little things you do for each other. And yes, there are things you do in the bedroom to arouse each other, but really it's a mental thing that takes place, all day long, all the time. And pornography doesn't show you any of that.
No, it just teaches you that your sex is about getting your needs met, mm-hmm. and isn't about meeting someone else's needs, right. or experiencing something wonderful together.
Which is what God created sex to be.
That's exactly right.
It number 7, porn leads to marital dissatisfaction. Research has found that after men are exposed to pornography, they rate themselves as less in love with their partner than men who didn't see any porn. So, not only is porn a fantasy, but it makes it harder for users to have real loving relationships. Yeah. All they're seeing is just that fantasy, and not what we discussed, just now.
Because pornography portrays as being very quick and very easy, and everybody is turned on. Then marital sex is viewed as complicated. It takes effort. It takes too much work. As a result, romance dwindles. It just creates unrealistic expectations.
It very much creates unrealistic expectations, for sure.
Yeah. When you go to the movies, you honestly know that the movie has been edited, that the people on the screen are actors, that they're paid to script a character in their life. You know that people can't jump cars in Fast and Furious and do things like that all the time. That it can be very. A lot of times you go, "Well, that was a good movie. That was a lot of fun," but that was so unrealistic. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, people have a difficulty making these same connections when they watch pornography. Right. They forget that real sex isn't the same thing
as that perfectly scripted scene they're watching on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just leads to unrealistic expectations about sex and a warped view of what a sexual partner should look like and be willing to do. It creates expectations that can never be met.
It's true. Pornography is a gateway to infidelity. And these are statistics.
That's a huge statistic.
Yeah. Porn increases marital infidelity by 300%. 300%. Watching porn diminishes relationship commitment. The fantasy alternative leads to real-world cheating. Those are statistics proven out there. And I'm going to try and cite some of these so that you can go back and look at these if you want to go to our page and find those. But,
and that's no wonder, when we said it breaks trust and spouses wonder, well, what else have they been doing? They have a right to wonder that because it just said that, infidelity is increased by 300%. And so, maybe they have strayed a time or two. Porn-free relationships are stronger with a lower rate of infidelity. We know that. Their rate of infidelity was at least half of those who watched sexual material alone and with their partners. And it's interesting that society tells us if we don't allow pornography in our marriage, we'll push away our partner and drive them to infidelity. But in reality, pornography is linked to infidelity. That's not even mentioning the fact that many people view pornography as infidelity in itself. I mean, I would feel cheated on if you were
True.
taking part in
I believe Jesus said
pornography.
something about if you desire it in your heart, you already have.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I would think, I mean, we talk about physical affairs, we talk about emotional affairs, and that's where you have an affair. Maybe not, you never touched the other person, but you have connected with them much like or even more than you would your spouse. You text them. It's an unhealthy friendship. And then pornography would be like a mental affair.
Mental affairs,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Here's another one, number 9. Pornography is linked to depression, stress, and anxiety. And men and women who have cyber sex have an alarming high rates of clinical depression, stress, and anxiety.
Yeah. Recovering porn users continue to report a reduction in social anxiety as one of the most common improvements when they stop using internet porn.
Yeah. And we're not saying that pornography is a primary cause of depression or anxiety. The truth is there isn't enough research on the subject to draw a clear conclusion from it. We are saying, though, it does lead to it and can make it worse. There is a clear correlation and link being discovered between porn usage and depression and stress and anxiety.
Yeah, these 3 issues can have a big impact not on just yourself, but on your marriage as well.
Yep.
I mean, depression, stress, and anxiety, those are going to affect your marriage relationship.
So let's give number 10 and a little challenge.
Okay.
And then next week we're going to pick up with what do I do to overcome it? What do I do if it's in my marriage? What options do I have?
That's right.
So,
There is help out there. And
Yeah.
we don't want to just give you all of these bad,
Yeah.
this is the bad, this is the damage, this is the harm, without giving you some positive. So tune
Exactly.
in next week and we'll give you the
Yes.
positive side of this. But yes, number 10 is that porn alters the brain. Porn physically changes your brain. And here's the really scary part. The more porn a person looks at, the more severe the damage to their brain becomes and the more difficult it is to break free.
Scientists at Cambridge University studied the brain scans of porn addicts and found that they looked exactly like those of drug addicts, which
Wow.
is just really crazy. Just like other addictive substances, porn fills the brain with dopamine. And the more you view pornography, the more desensitized you become.
That's right. Porn that desensitized, it's different than some addictions, pornography is, because, alcoholics want more and more and more alcohol, but porn addicts don't just want more porn, they want different porn. What was once exciting and arousing no longer satisfies them. They're always looking for harder
bigger
and
fix.
harder. That's
Yeah.
right. I guess alcohol and drugs can be the same. Maybe you start looking for something harder and more, but that's why porn becomes so addictive and why it never satisfies. These facts are pretty
Spooky.
pretty sobering.
Yeah, they are. And so our challenge to you is don't believe the lies, do believe the truth. The studies have been done. And we challenge you to spice it up in your marriage. We're not saying that if you have a good sex life, your spouse is never going to look at porn. But we are saying that you don't need porn to make your marriage exciting in any way. You can spice it up in the bedroom. You can try something new, something different. Communicate with your spouse. Hey, let's try something new. Just change some stuff up, but work on connecting with your spouse and not taking the easy way out of just simple, lazy pornography.
That's right. Society tells us that fidelity and commitment are not sexy, but they are.
Yeah.
Fidelity and commitment are very sexy. And so,
Faithfulness is sexy.
Yeah. So we want to be clear. We're not saying that all marriages with pornography are doomed to failure. We're not saying that at all. But we are saying that pornography is a very real struggle for many men, women, and marriages. And yeah, there's people that are hurting because of it. We know that change is not easy or immediate, but it is possible. And it's worth it.
Yeah, I know many men, I'll talk to the men for just a second. I know many men out there who have had pornography addictions. They'll admit to it. But what we want you to understand is they have overcome it. And they can tell you today it can be done. And their marriage is improved, their relationships improved, their sex life is improved, all of those things. And so next week, we want to talk a little bit about how to overcome some porn problems in your marriage. What happens if I've discovered it? What can I do to beat the temptation? How can we block this? And we're going to look at some real ways this can be done. Maybe you're sitting there and you're going, hey, this is an issue in our marriage and I don't know where to go or what to do. We're going to talk about some of those things next week. But this is a real topic for real couples, and we get tons of questions about it. We thought it's got to be addressed. So we wanted to set the facts straight to start with. It is not something you need in your marriage. It does not spice things up. It causes more problems than good. And don't believe the lies about, hey, if I don't, if I don't allow every marriage does it and every husband does it. None of those things are true. So next week we'll come back in and we'll talk about part 2. Thank you for joining us. Have an awesome week, and we are honored that you have joined us.